Vice.
Okay. Welcome everybody to the Transportation Equity Task Force meeting for today. We are going to be presenting on Keep New Hampshire Moving. You're in the Lunch and Learn series. Just want to share with everybody that this meeting is going to be recorded, and we're going to share the recording after this is over. Right now, the audience is muted, and you can use your chat throughout the meeting. You won't be able to turn on your camera, though. This is just to keep things focused on the speakers that we have lined up for today. If you have anything that you want to ask during the interactive portion of the meeting, just raise your hand and we'll make sure that you get recognized. Advocates Building Lasting Equality in New Hampshire, or as we know it, ABLE New Hampshire, advocates for the civil and human rights of children and adults with disabilities. We promote full participation by improving systems, connecting families, inspiring communities, and influencing public policy. Every year, ABLE asks its members, what is most important to you? And in 2024, we were told very clearly that transportation was one of the most important factors for people with disabilities in the state of New Hampshire. So we started this task force, and I, Lisa Stedman, said that this is the one that I wanted to work on most closely. One of our key initiatives is our Lunch and Learn series. We're doing this to help people with disabilities become aware of the many transportation options and resources that are available, and to help them become comfortable using the tools to get where they need to go. In December, next month, we're going to be talking with Uber. They have a new platform where caregiver coordinated on-demand transportation is possible. And then we're going to talk about assistive technology for transportation applications in January. And then in February, we're hoping to have an introduction to microtransit. And we have a Lunch and Learn archive of the previous 5 Lunch and Learns that we have done. Those can be found on the ABLE New Hampshire website under the Transportation Equity Task Force. The archive is at the bottom if you scroll to the bottom. These one-pagers are very helpful if you yourself are looking for just a quick way to become familiar with the previous topics, or if you're aiding somebody, you might just want to print out these one-pagers and have those as your resource to hand out to folks. Today's session is on Keep New Hampshire Moving, and we've got 3 presenters. I'm going to turn it over to our first presenter, Steve Workman.
Great. Thank you very much, Lisa. I'm going to get my slides up and then tune into the group. All right, give me just a second so that I can see all of you. All right, well, I'm going to punt rather than get you on the right screen. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Steve Workman. I am the Director of Transport New Hampshire. For those of you who may not be able to see me on screen for any reason, I am a white male with brown hair. I have a beard with far too many white hairs in it. I don't know how that happened. And when I'm not scrunched to a Zoom box, I'm 6'1". So I want to tell you a little bit about what I do for Transport New Hampshire. I don't provide direct service. Instead, I work in and around our government agencies, our service providers, our mobility managers, so that I can focus on bringing people across sectors to improve the outcomes for all of you living in New Hampshire. And I do that a lot of time by doing coordination work. Sometimes I do instigation to make things happen. And that's because one of the cornerstones of my mission is actually advocacy. So I advocate both for our transportation system in the biggest sense, that means roads and bridges, but especially for what I consider to be some of our most important transportation services. And that's public transit, which you know as those buses that travel around the state, as well as community transportation, often includes things like shuttles, paratransit services, volunteer driver programs. So my job is to really speak for the sector, to advocate that New Hampshire and the federal government invest in these services, and then most importantly, to remember that everything we do is for you, the end user. So with that said, today I'm joined by my colleagues, Ben and Teri, and what we're going to do is we're going to split this up. So I'm going to start talking about some logistics, review what mobility management is at a really high level so that we all understand. Then I'm going to show you who our mobility managers are. And then we're going to dive into our tool, which is Keep New Hampshire Moving. After that, my colleague Ben will do a live demonstration of the Keep New Hampshire Moving website. So while you're listening to me, he's going to come along and actually show you how it works after. And he's going to talk about, as a mobility manager, how he uses that tool and goes about doing his work in Region 8, where he is, which is located in the greater Manchester region. And then finally, our statewide mobility manager, Teri Palmer, is going to talk about how the mobility managers can support you, but we have an ask. We can't actually do it without you. So we want to talk about how you can help us and our transportation team so that we can provide better services for you. So this concept of mobility management, there's a slide on screen right now where it just shows folks, everybody out there in New Hampshire living their life and trying to get where they need to go. Well, the mobility manager helps you get where you need to go. So they take time to understand your situation, your special needs, where you live, and what resources are available. And then they help you to figure out, well, how can we get you to where you're going? And so this may involve a whole bunch of different types of transportation. It could be those buses we talked about. It could be those volunteer drivers. For some of you, if you're going long distance, it may be the Amtrak train. It may be a taxi or an Uber service. But our mobility managers, they're there to help you navigate this system. It can be really confusing to figure out where these services are and whether you are going to be eligible to access them, and whether they're going to actually provide for your specific needs. Once this happens, this gets you to your destination. That could be healthcare importance. That could be to faith communities, to church services. It could be to senior centers. It could be to local community centers. It could be to jobs. Maybe you just need to go to the grocery store. The point is, our mobility managers are committed to trying to help you get where you need to go in the most efficient and affordable way possible. So we continue with a second diagram, and it talks about what the mobility managers are doing kind of behind the scenes. And so just as I told you, I work across sectors and across government and providers to do this work. Well, they're doing much of the same thing. So they're going across those sectors to partners. It may come as a surprise to you. When you think transportation, you might actually think that the Department of Transportation has the most federal dollars for transportation services. And actually, that's not true. They have far less than the Department of Health and Human Services. So when I tell you that, you can really start to understand how important it is that we are knocking down those walls between sectors and talking to each other. Because if we're not engaging with the DHHS program and the caseworkers and folks that are helping over there, then we're missing an opportunity to improve outcomes for all of you, our end users. So the next thing that they engage with is they try to understand people's transportation needs. Abel's done a lot of work on this. You've identified transportation as one of your number one barriers to living your best life. And so our mobility managers, together with our other sectors and a really exciting statewide community transportation needs assessment, we're trying to really understand this. We want to know where the services are, what's working well so that we can increase that, and what's not working so well, or is there a transportation desert? You know, that gap where there's no desert. And folks joining us from the North Country, we recognize that there are transportation deserts up there, and we simply have to do better. So as mobility managers are doing that, we're all working together to try to actually talk to policymakers, the lawmakers, our governor, the federal government, all the folks that are responsible for creating an environment where we can work together and who are responsible for making sure that we receive the financial resources so that we can actually create these. So that's a basic overview of mobility manager work. I will tell you that any single mobility manager, their job is going to look slightly different, but there are core values and core functions that every single one of them, whether it's here in New Hampshire or whether it's someplace else in our country. So the next 3 slides are contact information and pictures of our New Hampshire Mobility Manager Network. And I'm going to just briefly read through those. My purpose of putting this in was so that these could be given to you as a resource after this, and you will have multiple ways to see who your local mobility manager is. So starting off, we have Teri Palmer, who is our statewide mobility manager. Then the next 2 regions, Region 1 and Region 2, this is Grafton and Coos County, and then Carroll County. Unfortunately, these positions are vacant. We are working on doing a combined mobility manager position, and we are currently advertising for that position. Unfortunately, though, that does mean that you don't have a dedicated mobility manager at this time. However, our statewide mobility manager, Teri, is actually filling in and trying to provide that coverage. Plus, our mobility management team is really good. They work well together. And when one of them has a problem, they reach out to other members of the team to try to solve that problem for you. Next, we have Region 3, and that's Cindy Yansky. And this is the mid-state region. So it's based out of the Concord area. Then on Region 4, we have Candy Reed. And while I didn't see everybody that was coming in, I did see that Candy is on our Lunch and Learn today with us. So hello, Candy. She's working in Sullivan County. And then someone else you may recognize in Region 5, Cheshire Monadnock, is your own Lisa Stedman. And we are really excited to have just welcomed Lisa into this, this position in Region 5. We recognize the work that Lisa has done with Able New Hampshire is just going to make a stronger connection to all of you working in your communities so that we can really improve outcomes for you. Next up, we have Donna Marceau. I also saw that she joined us today. She's Region 7, and that's the Greater Nashua region area. And our last 2, Ben Herbert from Region 8, that's in Manchester. You'll be hearing from Ben after I stop speaking. And then finally, down in the Seacoast region, which is actually where I live, we have Jeff Donald, and they call their region ACT, but essentially it's Rockingham and parts of Stratford County. So these folks, mobility managers, sometimes the word is just kind of weird. Like, what do you mean? What are they managing? Well, really, they're managing transportation. Okay, but that doesn't tell you much. But I do know that we have a mix of professionals on this Lunch and Learn, and we also have consumers. And many of you either have the responsibility of being a case manager, or many of you are working with a case manager to help you meet your needs. I want you to think of our mobility managers as a caseworker for transportation. They're very specialized, but as we know, transportation goes across every single thing we do in life. And so they're the ones that are going to focus in on this. Why does that matter? Well, this frees up your other case managers in the state. They can focus on the expertise they need to deliver the services and the assistance you need. And then they have a person that they can reach out to who is the expert in what's available for transportation. So you can see how this becomes just really more efficient at meeting your needs and making sure the system is delivering for everybody. So now I want to go into Keep New Hampshire Moving, which is our website. So where did this come from? Well, actually about 5, maybe 6 years ago now, we started advocating for increased funding to take care of all the unmet needs throughout New Hampshire for transportation. And we did this by using all those processes, all those public hearings, which are often really difficult for folks that have mobility issues to actually get to. We're trying to fix that as well. But one of the things we realized was we as the professionals had to step up and show up at those meetings so we could speak on your behalf and make things easier so that you can join us in advocating. And so as a result, we actually received additional funding to figure out where we wanted to go next to improve outcomes in New Hampshire. We were fortunate at the time, and this is a silver lining, when COVID hit and the federal government started providing a lot of additional funds to support states, we found that we had a project that fit really well with some COVID emergency dollars that the Centers for Disease Control, the Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, were giving to each state. So we partnered with New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services, and we were able to add approximately $3 million to a statewide effort to improve outcomes. This is how we started and built our mobility management network, our people. This next piece, the Keep New Hampshire Moving website, that's the tool. So it is a website online tool, and it has a lot of information on it. So right now on screen, I just have a snapshot of the homepage for those of you that can see that. And again, Ben is going to take you through this in real time and show you how this actually works to navigate through the site. But this website has a lot of information on it. And in fact, that might be a little overwhelming for some of you. So let me explain what the website does. The website is the home for the State Coordinating Council for Community Transportation, which I serve on the leadership team of. It is also the home for each of our regional coordination councils. And that's where our mobility managers live. And then finally, it's got resources. And these are where you can go under our resource page, and we're constantly adding to that. But that's where you can find a lot of transportation documents, those state studies or those policies that come out that are really important, especially if you're going to advocate for yourself or for others. Then we have a blog, and that blog is something that we're really starting to use more of, where we really want to spotlight the issues. When you navigate the website, at the bottom of every page, you will notice that there is a clickable link that says share your voice or make your voice heard. And that connects directly back to my work with Transport New Hampshire. And if you click that, you can add yourself to a mailing list. And this mailing list will become, it is not functioning right now, but it will become a two-way pipeline so that we can share information that's important to our users. So obviously that's transportation information, but it's also an opportunity for us to potentially share really important information from our partners that help work with us that could be important for you to know. It also provides a way for you to talk and inform us about what your experiences are looking like. And there are other ways you can do that. But we're hoping with doing this, we can really build a group of dedicated people throughout the state who are ready to stand up and demand improvement on these services that are so necessary for practically everyone living in the state. So let me tell you what the website does from a user standpoint. And for those of you that are professionals in the room right now, this is also for you as well. So Keep New Hampshire Moving is our official website for the State Council and the Regional Coordination Councils. But it's also a one-stop transportation service clearinghouse. Well, what does that mean? What it means is we tried to explain to you all the different ways that you can drive. You know, a lot of you probably go attend meetings, and have you ever noticed that every sector has its own alphabet, and there's abbreviations and there's a way of talking about things? In transportation, we have alphabet soup and we have number soup, and that can really be hard for you to wrap your head around. I know when I started my job, I sat at the table for several months going, oh my, what did I get myself into? So what we tried to do with transportation services is under the Ways to Travel tab, we try to explain all the different types of transportation services. So when you go into that, you'll notice we have everything from regular fixed bus routes to volunteer driver programs, even to Amtrak and our airports, which is something that's coming online. And the reason we're doing this is we want to develop Keep New Hampshire Moving so that every single person in this state that needs some sort of transportation service can come here and get information. So as I said, this is designed for both professionals and the public to use. This is your first stop in finding transportation, however. What do I mean by that? Well, a lot of folks, when they come to the site, they've heard about this and they're starting to check out the site. And they think, well, this is great. I know I need a ride next Monday, and I know where I'm going. So I'll share that information. Unfortunately, at this time, Keep New Hampshire Moving does not book your ride. In order for us to do that, and this is a goal for the state, in order for us to do this, there's a significant investment of money needed to put the technology in place. Because our transportation services in New Hampshire are delivered by a lot of individual transportation providers. That means that they still work independently, even though we all come together to try to deliver services to you. And so for that reason, we have to put technology that can speak to their systems. If and when we are successful in this, then you will have a website that we call a one-click or a one-call system. And this simply means that you can do research, you can plan a trip, and then ideally, you can book that trip and even potentially pay for it through this system. Now, I want to be clear to you, this is a very, very big lift. We are working as quickly as we can. We know that this website, which we call version 1, is certainly not perfect. There's a lot to it, and we have a list a mile long of things we want to improve. Now, a lot of you have heard about the Rural Health Transformation Grant that's out there that New Hampshire has gone for. We've submitted a bunch of strategies, and one is to Keep New Hampshire Moving from sort of like this, let's call it the bicycle version, all the way to the souped up Cadillac, or pick your favorite vehicle. And if we have that funding, we have a good chance. And that's when we can try to make this more of a one-click, so it becomes easier for you to use. We're also considering including things like AI, because we recognize that smart AI, not one of those chat bots, which really doesn't know anything, it just spits out sentences to you. We want to see whether we can incorporate AI in this, and this can actually help you navigate through this site and ultimately help you book rides when you need them. So I want to share that because it's a really exciting thing for us, but I want to be real with you. Right now, we're not there. This is the first and best step that New Hampshire has had at organizing all of this information. Prior to this website, this information was spread throughout individual directories. In fact, before online, there were paper directories, and I understand many of you probably wish you could have a paper directory. And so our mobility managers, they're able to produce that for you. But it was really hard. You had to be a detective to figure out where these services are. And you know, a lot of our folks that need our services, often there's an emergency or an urgency at the very least. That's the wrong time to start playing detective to find out how you can get transportation services. And we acknowledge that, and we're trying to fix that. I mentioned already that we have educational information to talk about the services. And then most importantly, when I told you our regional page, our regional pages, when you click on that region tab, you're going to get a list, and it's going to show you a map of the entire state. And it's going to show you that we organize the state into what we call regional community transportation regions. That doesn't mean a lot to you because we recognize that you know what you know. You know where you live, and you know where you need to go. And our boundary lines are arbitrary. So, but those of you that are trying to understand how we go about this, we needed to make it a little easier for us to think about. And so this map will show you the areas of the state and what that region is, so you can find where you live. To the right of that map, there is a breakdown of each of the 8 regions, and there's a listing of every town is in that region and who your mobility manager is. When you find that and click that, you will go to a special page that is all about your region. It has resources, it has the contact information for your mobility manager, and it has other information about how you could potentially get involved in your regional coordination council. So the last part on the website that I'm going to talk about The slide that's on the screen right now has a lot of text on it. And on the left side, it's about search filters. And I'm going to talk about that for a second. On the right side, it's directions for using the database. I put them here. It's a takeaway, but these directions actually exist on the website so that you can bring those up. And those of you using screen readers, this should read that for you if that's a service that you need as well. But the most important thing for you is really securing that ride. And so this is where you go to our searchable database. And there are 3 filters that you can apply to the entire state to get you where you need to go. But I want to emphasize that there is one that you should use first, and it maybe should be the only one you use. And I say this because the more filters that you add in a search, the more likely its potential to exclude a resource that you maybe wanted. And so my first piece of advice to everyone is start by putting in your city or town. So this filter helps you find transportation for where your trip will start. Now, for a lot of you, this is your home. So we call this the trip origin. This could also be the town where you live or a different town or transportation facility like the Manchester airport. So maybe you're at work and you need a ride from work. So that's what we mean. You put in, where are you starting from? That's going to tell you what services are available in your town. It will also tell you what services might be available just across the border in another town. And if you could get there, and we understand for some of you that's a burden, but it does mean you could access those even if that bus isn't running, for example, in your town. The other 2 filters that you can use, and again, I suggest you use this as you become more used to the website, is the transportation regions. So if you learn and know what region you live in, remember that's the map I talked about, then you can actually do a search based on services in your region. So if I lived in Concord, I would select Region 3 for my filter, and it would bring up all of those services operating in Region 3. The last thing is ways to travel. I really suggest that you don't use this. In some cases, you really may know this is exactly what I want to do, how I want to travel. But in many ways, you're going to want to see what your options are. And in fact, for some of you, especially if you're making trips long distance that go outside of regions or outside of the state, you may need to connect with several different types of transportation. And so by focusing on this, you may limit that. So again, my takeaway here is start by searching for your city or town. Another part of the website, and this is located at a button in the upper right-hand corner of the website, and it says Trip Planner. The Trip Planner is a very valuable tool. Trip planners are the sort of thing where you can put in, much like I just told you, say, well, here's where I'm starting. Okay, here's my trip origin. And this is where I need to go. So I'm in Concord and I need to get up to Dartmouth Hitchcock. So I would put that in, and this trip planner would then bring up the options that are available to me and would help me put together that trip. Now, again, I need to caution you, because we don't have a seamless end-to-end one-click, one-call, it can help you put a trip together, but you will still have to follow up to book those actual rides with the service provider. But it's still handy. So the trip planner not only provides you with words, but it also shows you a map. So it's very visual. Having said all of that, I need to be real with all of you for a second. So currently, our trip planner that we are using is a very good tool. It does some things very well. It's also a tool that's being developed. So this is not our tool. This is a company called Agile Mile. And Agile Mile is one of those businesses out there who develop these tools to try to fit the needs of the transportation community. And so each of these companies, as you can imagine, they've got their own struggles and their challenges, and they're trying to continually improve based on user feedback. At this point in time, some of the regions have really solid information in this trip planner. Others do not have all of the transportation services. And what this means is if you rely solely on this trip planner right now, you may miss other transportation options. Another thing that it's important to acknowledge is I know from working with Andrew Harmon, who I know many of you know and who may be on this call right now. He has helped me look at Keep New Hampshire Moving and Agile Mile Trip Planner through the lens of somebody that uses a screen reader and how that can be more accessible. And I'll be honest, Andrew helped us, prevented us from making several mistakes because we didn't know any better. So it was really important to have his voice. But one of the things we know is that the trip planner right now does not work very well for a screen reader. I have discussed this with the company, and they have acknowledged that that is an issue and one that is a priority for them. So over time, as we're upgrading Keep New Hampshire Moving, I just want you to be aware that we're also looking to improve those extra tools that are on it so that ultimately we can provide a tool that works for every person that comes to this website. So with that said, I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to turn this over to Ben, who's going to walk us through the website and show us what it would look like to go in there either as a professional, a mobility manager, or you members of the public. So Ben, take it away, please.
All right. Thank you very much. My name is Ben Herbert, and I am the Regional Mobility Manager for Region 8. Region 8 is the Southern New Hampshire region, which is also the greater Manchester, Derry, and Salem region of the state. And I'll walk everybody through using this website. Not every single button on here, of course, because there's so many buttons, but the main things that you guys definitely want to know about. This is the homepage that you go to. When you type keepnhmoving.com, this is where it takes you to. A couple of things right off the bat. There are accessibility widgets on this website. Over on the left here, you can toggle high contrast if you need to do such thing. And you can also toggle the font size as well, the button right here on the left. And then in the bottom left corner, there's a drop-down menu where you can change the languages on here as well. So we got Spanish, Armenian, Arabic, Bosnian, Chinese, French, Indonesian, Portuguese, Somali, Sudanese, Swahili, Tajik, and Ukrainian. I hope you guys memorized all that because there's a quiz at the end of this. Anyways, there's not, don't worry. So there's two audiences that Steve mentioned that this website really wants to serve. There's the audience of those who need to find a ride, and there's the audience of those who want to bring the rides, who want more rides for people in their community, the advocates of transportation. And I say those are two separate audiences, but also they tend to overlap as well, because those who need rides also are advocates for rides because we need rides. So I'll go to the first section of this, which is I need to find a ride to a medical appointment. How do I do this? How do I navigate this? And so in that case, you would go over here to find a ride. Just as simple as that. And this is what you find here. All these cards are all transportation services all over the state. Now, you could do the very tedious task of going through the dozens, possibly over 100 different services on here and try and find one that's in your hometown, or you just go up to the top and use these filters that Steve had mentioned. So trip origin, as Steve said, is the town that you're traveling from. In many cases, it's the town that you live in, or the city that you live in. So this, of course, lists every single municipality in New Hampshire. Now you're thinking, oh, great, I got to scroll through all 230 some towns or however many's in here. No, you don't. Say that you live in Danville. You can just type DANV, and then it pops up right there. So say you live in Danville and you just want to see what's available in Danville. So you put that in and it spits out all the services that are available in Danville. So you've got the Rockingham Meals on Wheels service. You've got the community caregivers of Greater Derry, and then you've got some private services like the Royal Airport Service, which has limo and airport shuttles, and Rocket Rides, which also is an airport service in the southern New Hampshire and New England region. Um, and then if you want to learn more about these services, you would just click Learn More. This is where you can find all the stuff you need to know about, such as like what advance notice you need to give. So some providers can give the ride if you call them the day before. Some need to know like a week ahead when they'll need to schedule a ride for you, but that's what it means when it says advance notice. It also shows all the communities it serves. So while it's in Danville, it also serves a dozen or two communities in the Rockingham County area. The cost of the service as well. A lot of the services on our website are either free or low cost because while we want to serve all transportation services, we mostly prioritize our focus on public, free, and nonprofit services. Um, we'll list the hours of service. In many cases, you'll have to reach out to the provider themselves for hours because it tends to vary a lot. We have a ridership eligibility, so this service is mostly for seniors, and they define seniors as aged 60 and over, and also if these services are wheelchair accessible. And then if you want to contact them, over on the right side is where you'll find all the contact information, including their address and their phone number. Sometimes they have an email that's on display if you can reach out to them by email. They do not, so they would prefer to be contacted with the phone number right here. Um, so if I go back here, let's do something else then. So now we know what's in Danville. If we want to get a little more specific, so well, let's do a different town. Let's do Manchester. So that's not Manchester. That's Manchester. So I live in Manchester, but I need something that's let's say bus service, or no, I need a volunteer driver program because those are free. What's available in Manchester that's a volunteer driver program? So when we add that filter, up pops up the caregivers, which is a volunteer driver program based right here in Manchester. You can see at the top that it's a free service as well. And you do the same thing that you did on the last web page. You click on it and you can find all the information you need to know about the caregivers, as well as how to contact them. So that's the side of it that's for the people that need to find rides, who need to get to where they need to go. The other side of this website is for those who are the advocates for their community. If you're advocating for your client, if you're advocating for yourself, for your friends, family, or just in general to people in New Hampshire, this is where you can get involved within this whole network of transportation. And to do that, you can go over here under regions. As Steve mentioned, there's 8 regions in the state. You might have noticed that we have regions 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, and 10. Regions 6 and 9 do not exist. Those got absorbed by other regions, so we just kind of skip those. So don't get confused if you don't know where region 7 or region 9 is. Just they don't exist. We skip those numbers now. So say you live in Nashua, or actually, no, let's do Concord. I like Cindy's webpage. So say you live in Concord, you have either a client that struggles to get transportation to their medical appointments due to a disability or income situation, or that's you yourself in Concord that has that issue. And you want to learn how to get more involved to share your experiences with the people who can make the changes where they need to be made. So you can go to your region's webpage. In this case, it would be Region 3. And this is where you can find all the information about the Regional Coordinating Council, as well as your mobility manager. So if you need to reach out to somebody to at least just talk to someone to get your foot in the door, you could find your mobility manager's contact information right here on the right. In this case, that would be Cindy Yansky, who is in the audience right now. Shout out to Cindy. You can see all the communities that they serve in this region. You can see some history about the region, how it started up, who's involved in the region, which I think you could find under RCC information. Yes, you can. So you go down here and you click on RCC information. You can see that people involved in this council include some of the planning commissions, community action programs, some transportation services like the Concord Cab Company, Easter Seals, Future Insight, some senior living services like Helping Hands at the Lakes region, uh, also just some general human service organizations, as I mentioned, Easter Seals, Partnership for Public Health, Lakes Region Mental Health Center. There's just a plethora of different stakeholders at the table, and all working together towards the mission of a coordinated network of transportation that can help anybody get to where they need to go. So you can see who's involved in the RCC. You can see what they talk about in meetings in the past. We got a whole library on here of all the meeting minutes. If you want to, make a cup of hot cocoa, get under a blanket, and spend your evening reading meeting minutes, you can go on here and find that on here. And then it also lists all the transportation services available within that set region. So in this case, in Region 3, you've got the Concord Area Transit, Transport Central, the Friends Program, et cetera, et cetera. You can also see some of the regional projects that they work on. So in Region 3, they had this nice little infographic chart that gives some stats about ridership trends, the region itself, some grant-funded projects they did, all the transportation services in the region. You can also see how to get involved. In this case, Cindy has a whole tab dedicated to getting involved. So it talks about becoming a volunteer driver. If you have a couple hours that you're willing to use to help out your friends and family and neighbors in the community, you can become a volunteer driver. In this case, you would do it with Cindy's region, and she gives information on here about getting signed up for that. You can also not even become a member of the RCC, just show up to the RCC and just introduce yourselves. Usually you reach out to your mobility manager to get information on the next meeting, get added to the mailing list. There's no criteria. It's not a cool kids club, even though we're all pretty cool kids. There's no barrier to entry to get involved. You just have to reach out to us and ask us, and we'll be more than happy to have you included. I'll look at another regions page just to do it. So let's say who's my mobility manager in Region 5? Oh, it's someone named Lisa Stedman. I don't know who Lisa Stedman is. I'm going to reach out to her and ask about her region, what goes on in the region. I live in Keene. She covers the Keene area. What's her RCC up to? It seems that she's got some home health care, hospice, and community services on here. People from Cheshire County, Community Action Program, all different types of members involved in her RCC. And also you can see some of the projects they're working on as well. And of course, how to get involved. In this case, it's the same thing as Region 3, where you can volunteer to become a volunteer driver for one of their programs. In this case, it's the Community Volunteer Transportation Company. You just go ahead and click on that and it'll take you right to their webpage. And then you can also become a member or just show up to their regional coordinating council. In this case, they're the Monadnock Regional Coordinating Council, and you would just reach out right to Lisa Stedman to get information on that. And of course, Steve had mentioned at the very bottom, there's always a button that says make your voice heard. So you could go ahead and click that and just type up something that goes right to the people behind this webpage. If you want to share your experience about transportation, if you just don't, if you want to get involved and you just forget everything I've talked about, just remember this last part. You just scroll to the bottom and just click. What does it say? Make your voice heard. I want to make my voice heard. So I'll just give my name, say my name is Ben Herbert. That's my email, Herbert. I'll give my phone number, and I work in Manchester, but I'll put the town I live in. In this case, it's Dover. And I'll sign up, and then I will get reached out to get in touch with the folks behind Keep New Hampshire Moving, and then eventually get connected to the people that help make transportation possible within my region. This actually, one of our towns is the town of Deerfield, who didn't have a volunteer driver program last year and had a lot of trouble getting service from some of the existing providers around the town. So someone in the town actually managed to get in contact with not the regional coordinating council, but the state coordinating council, the people at like the higher level, just being like, I'm trying to get rides in my town for people that got to go to the hospital. What do I do? And after we talked, they introduced him to our region. I met him one-on-one, did some work with different regions between each other. I'll skip all the details, but I'll just say the end result, which is that they have a volunteer driver program now. And that's the result that can come out of getting connected with this network of individuals because we all work together across various sectors to deliver a network of transportation that can meet the needs of everybody, especially those who are of older age and those who have disabilities. So, don't think I have anything else I was going to show off on this website. Like I said, there's a bunch of other buttons on here that you can click on and look at, but as Steve said, you don't really need to go through all of these. The most important ones is find a ride in regions. You need help finding a ride, click and find a ride. If you want to get involved in your region, click on region. It's the main two things to remember when you go on this website. So with that, if I don't have anything else to show off, I will pass it on to Teri.
Thank you, Ben. Just some closing thoughts. Steve mentioned it in the very beginning that, we need to hear the stories, whether they're, success stories or they're not successful stories. And, we really need your voices, whether you're a provider, a counselor, someone with lived experience at the regional coordinating council meetings. And our state coordinating council meetings are also open to the public. There are options for virtual participation at all of our regional coordinating council meetings and our state coordinating council meeting. If you want to participate in person, I would suggest reaching out to your regional mobility manager if you need to know transportation options. I can tell you that we do struggle with wheelchair transportation options throughout the entire state at this time. And that's something that we're really hoping that we can address those gaps in the future. I know we were just talking about that right before this webinar started. So yeah, I know we want to open it up to questions. There's been some amazing questions already in the chat. So if you have any additional questions, you can either go to the Keep New Hampshire Moving questions email option, or you can reach out to myself, Lisa, and we'll get those answered for you. So again, thank you so much for all of you participating today, and stay tuned.
All right, everyone. So the slide you see here is how to reach your mobility managers. And we've mentioned that several times, that you can find that on the Keep New Hampshire Moving website as well. What I'm putting up right now is the closing survey. Several of you have asked if you can have the slides from this presentation, and absolutely you can. And we're recording this and we're going to post it up on the webpage. We are also going to come up with a one-pager of the most important information that you need to know when you're accessing the website. The best way to get that is to scan this QR code or to go to the link that Creighton is going to paste into the chat box right now. Fill out the survey, and if you do nothing else, at least put in your email address so we know that you're there and that you want the information that we're about to share. I'm going to leave this up on screen while we go ahead and ask a couple of questions. You should be able to raise your hand if you want to ask a question. And when you do that, we will go ahead and allow you to turn on your camera and unmute yourself. Why don't we go ahead and read one of the questions that's in the chat box? Let's see. I'm just scrolling, and Teri, did you spot anything that should be answered for the general public there in the chat box?
I think a good question came up. What if there's a transportation provider that is not on the website? How do they get their information put on the website? I think the best way to do that is to reach out to your regional mobility manager. They all have the capability to add you to the website. Scott, I think you were talking about the Smart Ride folks. They definitely should be added to our website. And I know Lisa is looking to get that added. So again, if you know of anybody, like Steve mentioned, it could be a nonprofit, it could be private services. We want folks to know about them. So we're adding all of the transportation options in the state to the website at this time. One thing that we have found is even if they are a private provider, there's a lot of times that those private providers will do some nonprofit transportation, kind of behind the scenes if they have a driver available. And those are the folks that we really want to reach out to and say, what else would you be able to provide for the residents of New Hampshire? Because there's a lot of great people out there, and they really just want to get people from point A to point B. And they understand that times are tough. It's a very crazy fiscal climate we're in. So if they can kind of go above and beyond, they're willing to do that. So we want to hear about those providers.
I think the fact that there are not very many questions here means that our presenters did a really incredible job of presenting the information, and that folks intend to go out and dig around for themselves. If things come up in the future and you want to know answers about the website, again, you can use the QR code and fill out our survey, and there's a place there where you can ask additional questions that will go to all of the presenters, and those will be answered to you in an email or to the entire group if it's something that might benefit the entire group. Our next Lunch and Learn is coming up on December 19th, and there we're going to talk about Uber Caregiver. So just mark your calendars for that, and you'll see the flyer coming out very shortly. I suspect at the end of next week, you'll see that flyer coming out. And I would be very remiss if I didn't say that Able New Hampshire does really hard work to help impact outcomes for people with disabilities. This task force is an Able New Hampshire effort. And if you'd like to become a member of Able New Hampshire, that would be very helpful for them because they are a member-driven organization and they rely in part on membership contributions to do their work. I'll also mention that Creighton, who is here behind the scenes following the chat box and letting people in and out of the waiting room, is an employee of Able New Hampshire, and those employees don't get paid unless this small nonprofit is able to support them through memberships and donations. So thank you very much for coming today. We're going to stop the recording, but folks who want to hang around and ask additional questions, we're going to try to stay on for a bit longer. And please feel free to stay on.